microphone is on. This means we are allowed to start. Yes, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the White Ravens panel here at the Frankfurt Book Fair. My name is Katja Wiebe. This is my colleague Ines Galling, and we are the representatives of the International Youth Library. As you know, maybe the International Youth Library is the largest library for international children's books in the world, and we do collect books in the original language. And every year the library selects from all the new books that come to our collection the so-called White Ravens. So it's an international list of recommendations, and you can tell a bit more about this year's issue.
Yes, thank you. This year's collection or selection includes more than 200 titles we had in former years. So in former years we had 200 titles, and this year we do have 216 titles to be exact. And yes, why so? Yeah, of course, because there are so many great books around the world. And this year we have chosen books from 62 countries in 44 languages. And this year we have, for instance, included languages we do have rather seldom in our collection, and these are, for example, Cree, Armenian, Hebrew, Romani, Faroese, and Binisaya. And Binisaya is spoken on the Philippines. And yes, this big variety of languages also reflects that we this year do have a number of indigenous writers and illustrators, and also themes, so to say. Like oral folk tales, which now have been retold and illustrated in printed books. But of course, there are more themes and topics, and Katja can tell a little bit more.
Yes, every year there are some kind of, well, let's not say evergreens, but reoccurring topics that we have in every issue of the White Ravens. For example, those of political content, like about living in a dictatorship, or books that deal with colonialism, or also always very important is the topic of the Second World War. There are always books that are considered with this time, and of course, next to it goes themes like grief, loss, or death, of course. So the political topics are very often connected to those other topics. And but not only those, there are quite some books in this year's issues where children and families in the books, so the protagonists have to deal with the loss of a dear person, a dear friend or family member.
But for today, we have chosen to show you some books. Some have some other topics as a theme, like books which maybe are a little bit less depressing than books dealing with grief and death. And from these three categories, I'd like to present you some books a little bit more. And what are these three categories? We have chosen nature as a category. Then it's grandparents, and the third one is poetry. And I just go right away with the first group, nature. And of course, this is a wide term under which you can subsume a lot of books. And like, for example, books about specific phenomena, about flora and fauna, or even books dealing with the great picture or the big picture, what means how like everything is connected with each other. And this is also the main topic in the first book. This is a wordless picture book from Japan. It's by Hiroshi Tateno, and it's called Donguri in Japanese. And this means akron in English. And Hiroshi Tateno, he is acclaimed for his careful, precise, and poetic illustrations. And this is something you can also see in Donguri. There you can see how his close observations of objects has led to really stunning pictures. And the book is about a tree dropping acorns, and some of these acorns are eaten by birds and other animals, but some of the acorns survive and they grow into plants and then into trees. So the reader, they realize that a tiny acorn is the start of everything and that everything is connected with each other. So, and therefore it's really good to pay attention to all the small things and to take care about the small things like a little acorn. And the book suits people from 4 and up.
And I will continue with the book from Slovakia. It's, as you can see, very tall and narrow. It's called Jezero, the lake. It's written by Han Dono, and this book features 2 narrative presentation layers. The classical, more bookish part depicts the history of this orange-colored, egg-shaped lake, how it comes into being, how it grows, how it changes, and how it vanishes. And this lake has arisen from mother lakes and grandmother lakes, and it is, in the book, it is exposed to various influences, environmental influences, above all from the effects of humans. It's a very poetic and philosophical text, and this book invites the readers to reflect on the everlasting circle of life and of life in nature. But this is not all. The second layer is a big fold-out that I'm going to show you, where the vanished lake comes back as rain falling down from the sky, and it is eaten or taken in by humans, animals, and the earth. And so here we have the everlasting circle again. This book is suitable for readers. Actually, it's for all age, I think, but maybe readers that are 8+ can already have fun with this book. Yes, and I will directly continue with a book from the US, from the United States. It's called The Tree and the River. And this is a wordless picture book written or created by Aaron Becker. And it also has several layers. And on the first hand, it's a book about a tree growing up on the riverbanks of a winding river, and how it detects changes around itself. But as the tree sees very many things at the same time, the readers are invited to have a look what kind of changes. There are changes in the nature, how buildings are being built and vanishing again, and how people settle on the banks of the river, how they vanish, how they come again. And so you also have a big reflection of the everlasting circle of life and life in nature, where the human is not in the center, but just a tiny little part.
I continue with the fourth and last. This is a book from La Réunion, and it's written by Joël Ercomier and illustrated by Godeline de Rosamel, and in English the title is X's Memorable Fall. And Salah. And this character, his name is Xi, and he represents the human race in this book. And as you can see on the cover, he is depicted in an abstract way. He's painted with a plain black silhouette, and he has 2 white dots for the eyes and a line for the nose and no mouth. And this character, Xi, he lives in a fast-moving grey world, but one day he stumbles over a gravel stone. And then he falls, and after a long descent, he lands in a director's chair. And from there, he watches colorful images of animals passing by. And many of these animals are endangered or already extinct. And So these animals, they go by like in a film, in a row, and suddenly appear humans in the row. And see, he's really shocked because he realizes what's happening to the animals will soon happen to the people. And that means that also the people will extinct and die because Mother Earth, she cannot survive when people are acting like this, like acting in the way they do now. And yes, see, he learns and recognizes how small and vulnerable Mother Earth or the nature is. And the book reminds us not to forget about this. And yes, this book is suitable for kids from 9 years up.
Okay, that was topic number 1. Let's move on to topic number 2, grandparents. Grandparents play an important role in the White Ravens catalog, in the books of the White Ravens catalog, and especially when it comes to the interaction with their grandchildren. And sometimes grandparents are depicted as a source of wisdom, sometimes they're depicted as friends of the kids, so grandparents that are more fun than mom and dad, for example. But sometimes they're also depicted as, a bit annoying and grumpy old people. So we have this range of images about grandparents. And the first book that I'm going to present is from Korea. It's called Time Resembles a Flowing Wave. And their granny is knitting, and her granddaughter is sitting by her side asking questions about the lifespan of various animals, of the water, of waves. And the grandmother very wisely explains that that time is ever flowing, rising, and coming back again, and that each being's time flows at its own pace and has its own shape, and at all the different times of each being are interwoven with others. And to illustrate all this, the author of the book has created small lines and prints made of yarn, so that yarn is the metaphor for the whole book, and that everything is connected with everything. That would be the first example. So the picture book is suitable for kids 5+. Okay. Yes.
The next grandma book, it's a kind of funny example of the grandparents' literature, so to say, and it's the German book. And you see the title in German, it's Oma zu verkaufen, and the English title is Grandma for Sale. And this is a story about a family which, of course, totally by mistake sells the baby sister at the street jumble sale. And so the baby sister is gone, and mom and dad, of course, aren't thrilled, because after all, the sister was brand new, a baby. But it's not a real big deal, because you can get a new sister from the stall opposite. And this new sister, she is a bomb. So she is sweet as candy floss, she's polite, and she's helpful. And of course, such a treasure is really expensive. And this is why, unfortunately, grandma must be sold. So you need enough money to pay for this super sister. But grandma, of course, she will not be sold, and she puts up some resistance, but it can't be helped. She has to go. But the question, of course, remains, will anybody spend money on an old lady with many signs of use? So this story is completely crazy, and it's written by Martin Baltscheid, a very well-known German author, and the colorful and trendy pictures, as you see on the cover, they are by Thomas Wellmann. And yes, this is really a funny read for everybody. I continue right away with a book from Belgium. And this is also very funny and unconventional. It's called Mamie Manga, Granny Manga, and it's about Aya, the kid, and her or his grandmother. I'm not sure if it's boy or girl. And it's also a book about imagination, play, and everyday life. Because Aya, the kid, considers himself or herself being a little tiger. And in his or her world, he or she alternates between everyday experiences and fantastical ones. So every little incident is enough for Aya to glide into kind of superhero-like escapade. And for example, when Aya is walking on the street together with Grandma, Aya suddenly has to fight against a giant rhinoceros. And Anne Herbeau, who made the book, she illustrates all these imaginary travels of the little tiger Aya in a very sharp and dynamic way, and in wordless sketches. On these sketches, they, of course, resemble a Japanese manga, as you also can see on the cover page. And also the title tells us about it. Yes, and this book is for kids from 6 and plus, or up. So...
Okay, let's move on to the last old person here in this section. So this is a book from Mexico. It's called The Meaning of Life, and it's about protagonist Bruno. And after the loss and the death of his beloved grandmother, Bruno is not too much interested to visit his grandfather, because he's really a grumpy old person. But then it turns out that his grandfather suffers from dementia. And so Bruno starts to visit him, though, and a little relationship evolves between them. And the novel portrays very nicely how they continue to grow closer with a good sense for the mood and facets of a relationship that is never easy. But the book also tells about Bruno's everyday life, how he goes to school, how he falls in love for the first time. And so this book is not only the story of Bruno and his grandfather, but also a family portrait and how connections can be made and can be held through generations, even in very difficult times. Yes, it's a realistic novel with many aspects that readers will recognize immediately, that they know of their own family. It's suitable for young readers up from 13 plus.
And then we are already moving over to our last category, poetry. And maybe you know that we in the International Youth Library are very into poetry. So we do a Kinderkalender, a calendar with poetry for children. And we have been doing this calendar since 15 years now. So we are really into poetry for kids. And in our poetry category now, we have subsumed some of the books we have in the White Ravens collection this year. So there are more books dealing with poetry. And the first example here is a book which also could fit into the nature category. It's a book from Denmark. It's called A Perfect Insect, Concrete Poems About Danish Insects. And it's written and illustrated by Karen Filsgaard. And the book consists of poems, as the title says, about insects, about clothes moths and houseflies and earwigs and many other insects. And however, it's not a scurry or crawling or fluttering collection, as you might expect, but it's a strictly graphic one. Because Karen Filsgaard, she creates poetic silhouettes. So for her poems, she fills the contours of the bodies of her like insects with words, and this is really, really concrete poetry, supreme, and it's poetry that surprises and amazes, and which really shows us the beauty of insects. So usually you maybe find insects less attractive, but in this book you would notice that they can be very, very beautiful, and it's really an unusual and fantastic book. And it's suitable for all age, but like 6+. And I continue with a book from Italy. It's Search for Circles in English. So my Italian is very bad, so I don't read it. And it's written by Chiara Caminati and illustrated by Massimiliano Tapari. And in this book, as the title assumes, you find many circles, and like circles that are present every day and everywhere in your life. But maybe you do not notice them. But in this book, Chiara Caminati, she has invented riddles and rhymes to draw attention to all the hidden circles which like surround us, and which also can be connected in some way. And she does this with her poems. So this book is an eye-opener, and it's also an invitation to have closer looks to what surrounds you and to make accurate observations in a playful way. And it's for small ones, it's for 3 and plus.
So, and now we're moving on to Greece with the next poetry collection. It contains 10 poems. The book is called Poems for Children, and it's not concrete poetry, but it is poetry that has the topic of nature's beauty and the beauty of humanity, and again, how nature and people are connected. And the most interesting thing in this poetry collection is that the words or a line from one poem is the title of the next poem, so that all the poems in the end form kind of chain or a circle or a ring. And so it's a nice way to connect the content of these poems through to connect it this way. And the first poem is called Thanks. It's dedicated to a mother, and it ends with the poem Not. And this is a reminder that the earth is the mother to all, but not just the mother to people. That's the Greek poetry. And now we're going on with birds, a lot of birds. The first one is the song of the Tock bird, and it's from Spain. And it's asking how a tock bird sings. And it's a bird that sings like every bird. It sings best when it's when it has freedom and it's not caged in. But as a bird, the song always finds its way out through the cage and into freedom. And these poems are an invitation to reflect on the existential question of a free and self-determined life. And we'll move on to more birds from Latvia. This is a poetry collection written by Ines, and she's one of the major voices in Latvian children's literature. And in this volume, she blurs the boundaries between humans and birds, which is very funny sometimes, because she, as also the illustrators, are very playful with the perspective the poems and the illustrations take in, because they are written from the perspectives of birds watching people. And I will just quote from the title poem. It's called "The Birds Are Watching Us." They know how exciting it is to watch us people. They study our colorful wings, our nests, how we build and repair them. On the blue sky maps, birds mark the roads on which we humans walk and drive. The birds watch us as we feed the babies that hatched this summer and mark the breeding success like strict teachers. They count us at the feeding houses. When we are not there, the birds understand that we were just passers-by.
The last poetry book is not about a bird, but about a mouse. And it's written by Heinz Janisch, and as you know, he received the Hans Christian Andersen Award in Bologna this year. And the pictures are by Helga Bansch, and they too are a couple making picture books since ages. And yes, as I said, it's a book about a mouse doing a journey, going on an expedition, and the mouse takes the readers with her or with it. And on this journey, the mouse passes Monsterberge and Zauberzwerge, and after Dschungelwiese, there is a Nebelriese. So the mouse passes monster mountains and magic dwarfs, jungle meadow and fog giant. And when you understand German, you maybe have noticed that there is a rhyme. So this is a poetry book with just one word on every double spread, and this is really condensed, and it's a kind of example of how Heinz Janisch is able to create poems in a very reduced way, and how he is able to build up words with very small and very tiny words, and with just a few words, and these words are opening up spaces. And Helga Bunch, she is able to paint pictures which are connected with these words. They are kind of detailed, but they also are leaving plenty of room for your own imagination. And this is really a great and unconventional poetry picture book.
And as I think we are running a bit out of time, we've prepared 2 more books that we wanted to present you, some kind of favorites. I'm just showing you those 2. If you're really interested, you can come close after our meeting, and we can introduce you to the books. But for the meantime, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. We have some cards of the White Ravens catalog where you find more information. Grab the card, come to our stand. We're located in Hall 3.0, and we wish you all a lovely Frankfurt Book Fair. Thanks you.
Thank you for coming.